Hello folks, Scott here with my 10-card 1-kit video featuring the Love From Lizi September 2019. Happy birthday, Love From Lizi. Super card kit. This is Lizi's warm thanks card kit, and as if she didn't give us enough, every month in our regular kits for September for her birthday, Lizi always celebrates by giving us tons of supplies in our kits. Here's our 10 cards. I was initially really drawn to the ephemera frames in the kit. I thought they were very unique and very gorgeous, and so I started playing with them. First, for my first card this month, we've got So Grateful for You, featuring those great ephemera frame pieces. So interesting. They fill the whole front of a card. Now, I fiddled around with this for a while to come up with this combination here. I finally reached for my distress ink. This is the mustard seed distress ink, and I stamped the brush stroke on this David Tutera card base. This is an old shimmer David Tutera card base. I've had these sitting around for a long time. I bought them on sale or clearance, I know somewhere. So I thought I would do this first card on a nice shiny card base. And so I stamped the brushstroke stamp using the mustard seed ink, and I embossed the sentiment using the Perfect Plum embossing powder that was included in our set. I did mount the whole ephemera frame using little foam squares, and then finally added some of those great purple flower sequins from our sequin mix for a little extra bling on there. So grateful for you. A really nice thank you, love you card. Those ephemera frames are so interesting. In fact, as I was looking at all of my supplies this month, I realized that we actually had 10 different sentiments. I had 10 different sentiments with my stamp set and my die set from the kit, plus I got the add-on smudges and sentiment stamp set and the background builder set 1 die set. So between all of those pieces, I actually had 10 sentiments. So I have 10 more of these frames, so I figured, well, let's try and see if we can get all of these sentiments with all of these frames and make a couple of nice sets of cards. We've got Many Thanks, a stamp. This is the brushstroke stamp that's stamped back to back for this one. Another ephemera frame, Many Thanks, on that same David Tutera cardstock. Just a Note, with the diamond ephemera frame. Just a Note, Warm Thanks. Now, this is one of the die cuts. Now, I actually colored a piece of cardstock with a dark red 7 Spectrum Noir marker and die cut all of the die cut sentiments from that. It was a really close match, I thought, and I just covered the tops of those with a little bit of my sparkle pen, some of my Spectrum Noir sparkle pen. So there's a little sparkle to that sentiment since it's not embossed. Warm Thanks, that's one of the die cuts. Best Wishes, that's the die cut from the background builder die set, I believe. I really like that die cut sentiment. Very, very pretty. A plain thank you card. That's one of the circle frames. Then we get Warm Thanks. That's a stamp embossed again in that embossing powder. Warm Thanks. Cozy. With lots of love, one of the circular ones, another frame stamp mounted on that shimmer card base with some foam squares. Many Thanks. This is one of the die cut sentiments. Many Thanks, a little sparkle on that. This is one of those great big frames. They fill up the entire front of a card. I think these look really nice. These are going to make lovely presents this year. And Just a Note, our last die cut sentiment. So that's every sentiment that is in this kit. That is almost all of the brushstroke stamps. It's none of the small brushstroke stamps, but all of the big brushstroke stamps. That's my 10 cards from the Love From Lizi September 2019 Super Card Kit. And if you believe that, then I've got a bridge I'd like to sell you. No, these are definitely just a quick detour I took. My mind has been thinking of Christmas lately. I thought these would make some great presents. 5 cards, 5 envelopes. Of course, they're matching shimmer envelopes. I have these great little plastic boxes that everything fits into very nicely. And there's a lovely hostess gift, a lovely Christmas gift, anybody who needs a nice little assortment of cards. So you give me some watercolor paper and you give me a watercolor dot palette card. I'm going to want a watercolor. I die cut a piece of our watercolor paper with a stitched rectangle die and stamped the berry stamp a number of times on that with VersaFine Onyx Black ink. Now I do like taking the watercolors off of a dot card and put them on my glass media mat, make a little palette right there on the media mat. I feel like I have a little bit more control over how much color I'm putting on the card. The first layer is just a simple light layer of that dioxazine violet. I do that on all of the berries on the card before I do anything else. This is the second layer, and I start adding some shadows to these berries. I decided that the light would all be coming from straight up above, so the tops of all the berries will be highlighted. Just a second layer of that thin violet paint starts adding the nice shadows into the bottoms and the sides of our berries. Of course, that bottom berry in this cluster is behind everything else, so it becomes a whole shadow. I then go in and do a little scrub. Just with clean water and a fairly dry brush, I blend between those 2 layers. Now I will go through and do the same thing on all of the berries on this card, and then I'll go in and start the third layer. The third layer is just another layer of purple on top of everything else. And we move it into the bottom of the bloom butts and adding darker colors there on the bottoms and the sides of our berries. This is our third layer. I will go through and add this third layer to all of the berries before I do a scrub blend on everything. So here I go for the rest of the berries, and then I come in and do a clean water scrub to blend everything together. That's the 3 layers of the purple, 3 layers of the violet. Now I'm going to add the purple lake as for layer 4. Put some purple lake on my glass mat and then go into the darkest shadowy parts of the berries and add some of that purple lake into the shadows. I had a lot of color on my brush to begin with, so I spread it out around and then came back and blended that out a little bit more on those berries. That gets our shadows pretty dark. And then I'll go in and do another scrub blend with clean water, a very light water brush to blend everything together. That's all of the berries. Now we'll move into the foliage. I start with the hookers, dark green, and just fill in the bottom of the leaves where the leaves attach to the stems and the leaves veins and everything. I'm not coloring these completely. I do that on all of the leaves, and then I go into the sap green and fill in everything with the sap green. I'm not really looking to blend really tightly. I'm just filling up everything with the sap green and letting it blend as it will. I'll do that to all of the greenery on the card, and then I'll go back to that dark green and add some more shadows. Just deepen those shadows a little bit, give a little bit more definition to the darker parts of this greenery on all of these stamps. I'll finish that up on all of the greenery. And then I'll go in and do another scrub blend where I just blend everything together with some clean water. That's our layers. I reach into the yellow ochre and do little dabs in the little bloom butts and then add some of that Indian lake in there as well. Then I took all of the colors on my palette and just blended those together with a bunch of water, made a very, very thin beige wash, and used that to color the background of this card. This had so little color in it that it was really easy to fill in the background. You could almost just color over the berries and you'd never notice. And you can see here that there is a top, there is a bottom. Here I'm going in and doing a final little scrub on those balloons bloom butts there, blending that Indian red and that yellow ochre together. That's our last little blend here. The highlights are on the top. No, the highlights are on the bottom. Yes, the highlights are on the top. That's where they belong. Thank you very much. There, I got a pun. We got a pun this month. Thank you cards don't necessarily lend themselves too much to puns. I then stamped the thank you. It just happened to fit right in that space perfectly. I stamped it with my onyx black ink and embossed that with some clear embossing powder. I sent this through my printer to print the very much there. That is in the Arial font. This watercolor paper is thin enough to go through my Canon MX92 922 printer. So it should go through yours. It was thin enough. I die cut that watercolor panel with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die. Thank you very much. And matted that on a thin white mat, glued that down to our blue card base. You blew me away. I couldn't help myself. I was worried this was going to be my only pun out of this whole set. So I took it one step further. Thank you very much. You blew me away. A really fun card. That berry stamp is really, really nice. Card number 1, thank you very much. After watercoloring this card, I realized that most of our pattern paper were watercolor washes and watercolor blends and really soft watercolor looks. So I thought, well, maybe we could use our pattern paper to color our stamps. So on the orange card base, we've got a mini thanks card with the flower and again the berries and that nice long leaf sprig, all embossed with white on the different pattern papers. These are embossed on one of the orangey pattern papers. These are embossed on one of the purpley pattern papers, and then of course die cut with the included dies. I was looking for some kind of a frame to frame this little image in, and I was digging through my scraps when I found all these frames. I had cut all of these silver glitter frames using the Altenew Fine Frames cover die, a great die that will give you instantly a million different sized frames. I grabbed one of these and I grabbed an orange Spectrum Noir marker, colored that little thin frame with the orange Spectrum Noir marker, and made myself a little orange glitter frame for this card. I stamped and embossed the mini thanks using white embossing powder directly on the card base. Then I glued the frame down and glued all of our die cuts either directly to the card or with some dimension using some foam squares. Many thanks. All of the papers I used were those shimmer papers. So you got a little shine on that flower and those berries there. Works very nicely with those pattern papers. A few sequins from our sequin mix adds the final touch of bling to this card. Many thanks using the stamps and the dies in our set. We also got that huge pack of ephemera pieces. Now, I was looking through those ephemera pieces. We got 30 ephemera pieces in that pack, and I was looking through them and dividing them up and sorting them out when I realized that we actually have 15 different images. There's a large one and a small one of each image. That gives us our 30, but there are pairs of images in a large and small size. That's what prompted this card from me. This is on the burgundy card base. We've got a warm thanks card. Using those ephemera pieces, if you look closely, this is the exact same piece as that. They're, of course, reversed here, and they're just two different sizes. I took a scrap of watercolor paper and die cut that with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die. And I embossed one of the frame stamps from the new frame stamp set and the warm thanks sentiment with that perfect plum embossing powder on that watercolor paper. I went ahead and grabbed two more of those glitter frames from my Ulta New Fine Frames die, and I used that DR7 Spectrum Noir marker to color those a nice dark red. They work very well, frame this image up quite nicely. I glued the frames directly to the card base. I glued the watercolor piece directly to the card base. I added the 2 ephemera pieces using foam squares and added 3 of our little enamel dots, those glittery enamel dots, to the front of that for a final touch of bling. Another thank you card, really, really warm. I really like the colors on this. I think the burgundy and the ephemera and the little dots and the perfect plum embossing powder all goes so very nicely together. Now, I really liked that vellum piece that we got in our card kit, and I noticed that on my sheet, at least, I had 2 images of the berries that were complete. So I broke out my scissors on one of the soft yellow card bases. We've got So Grateful for You. Look at the shine on that card. I fussy cut this berry cluster from the vellum specialty piece and actually attach that to my card front using foam squares. So there's a little dimension there. That vellum is so thick you cannot see those foam squares behind it at all. I really like the look of that. And then to imitate the look of that gold foil on the berries, I stamped this brushstroke stamp and embossed that with the Perfect Plum embossing powder, and then used some gold embossing powder on top of that for the So Grateful for You sentiment. I grabbed a couple of the gold glitter peel-offs that were featured in our peel-off bundle for this kit and added those down the 2 sides. Another Grateful for You card, really pretty. Love the shine on that card. And I like how that gold sentiment really echoes the gold foiling on that vellum. Okay, now I've actually done 14 cards. I have to admit, I'm getting a little over-autumned with this color palette. That's all very pretty, but it all feels very autumn to me. I needed to remind myself that summer is still here on a white card base. My next card is Just a Note, featuring a nice rainbow. Yay. Those brushstroke stamps that we got in our set this month, they are so versatile and you can use them in so many different ways. I took that medium-sized brushstroke stamp and stamped it all the way across the front of our white card base. These colors are, from left to right, I used picked raspberry, candied apple, spiced marmalade, wild honey, squeezed lemonade, fossilized amber, twisted citron, lucky clover, peacock feathers, salty ocean, wilted violet, and seedless preserves. All Distress Oxide ink. They all stamp so nicely. I did die cut that sentiment, Just a Note, from 3 pieces of white cardstock and glued those all together for a nice little chunky sentiment. Gives us a nice little shadow. Glued that to the front of this card base down in the bottom right. Just a Note, a really nice, colorful, fun Just a Note card. And it is still summer, damn it. We got more than 15 feet of satin ribbon in this kit. Now, I'm not a big ribbons and bows type of card maker, but I looked at that big spool of ribbon and I thought there's got to be something I can do with all that ribbon. On the burgundy card base, we have a thanks card with that great woven ribbon background right there. This was so much fun. I actually took a piece of cardboard, a good piece of stiff cardboard, and I cut it, believe it or not, I cut it to 2 inches by 4 inches. That fits the satin ribbon in our kit perfectly. 5 of them, the 5 colors go across the short side, the 5 colors go across the long side, twice. 2 inches by 4 inches. I just used score tape on the back of that cardboard, attached the ribbons to the back, wove them across the front, attached them to the other side, gave them a nice stretch so they stayed nice and straight. Look at the shine on that. This is one of our pattern papers. I cut it 3 inches wide, glued it down to the burgundy cardstock. Now these are actually white Love from Lizi peel-offs. These are white peel-offs that I went in and colored with my DR7 Spectrum Noir pen. It really matched very well with these burgundy colors in this kit. Now I was worried that one of our delicate sentiments from the kit would get lost on this kind of quilted background. So I grabbed my Lawn Fawn Scripty Thanks die, and I die cut that 3 times out of white cardstock, glued those together, and then cut one more from this same pattern paper, glued that on top to make a nice chunky sentiment to go on top. I did put some extra sparkle pen on the top of that sentiment. I felt like this kept in theme with this kit as far as being a thank you card. I'm going to have to look at all of the ribbons I've been saving from the Love from Lizi kits and make more cards like that. I just really, really like that ribbon weaving there. Thanks! So we also had sticker sheets this month, those beautiful alpha stickers with a whole bunch of ampersands. Lizi mentioned using them for weddings and for anniversaries and things. Well, I actually have dear friends that are celebrating their 30th anniversary this month, so I thought I would make them an anniversary card. That's obviously their initials. On a white card base. I just covered the card front with a piece of that damask pattern paper. I really liked that. Then I took a nice piece of 40-pound vellum. I have some really nice 40-pound vellum. Very thick, very nice. And I actually embossed this little white line directly on the vellum using a little stylus and using the inside of a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die as a stencil to draw around. I drew that whole square on one side of the vellum. Then I ran that vellum through my Xyron sticker maker and glued that whole piece down to the front of the card base. Those embossed lines are coming from the back. Those white lines are a little bit raised on the front of this card. Then I grabbed those gold glitter peel-offs again, added little partial frames on the bottom right and the top left, and I took the C and K. I actually laid those out on a clear ruler so I could get them lined up well and then get them placed on the card perfectly. Those stickers are extremely sticky and will stick to anything the second they get close to it. Trust me. I did ruin one C and one K as well on this card. Now, once I put those initials on this card, I thought it needed something else. So I dug out our Atta Girl dies from the February of 2019 card kit, and I die cut this great little trident flourish piece out of the top edge of that glitter gold peel off sheet. There's that little border at the top that piece fit in perfectly. I knew that die cut would match the other peel offs on the card. So a lovely little trident flourish underneath their names there. Charlie and Casey, happy anniversary. Really pretty card. I really like this, even though it does feel kind of pink. I wanted to play a little bit more with some of those frame stamps from the New Frames stamp set. On our other navy card base, we've got Thank You. Now, this is another thank you card that's extremely reminiscent of those ephemera frame pieces that we got. But this is using the ephemera pieces and a fussy cut, plum embossed frame stamp. So I just stamped that frame stamp on a scrap of white cardstock, embossed it with the Perfect Plum embossing powder. I fussy cut that out, including the little holes in there. And these are two matching ephemera pieces from our ephemera kit. If you look closely, they're both the same arrangement, just in different sizes. I glued those together with that geometric frame, this time putting the frame on top of the flowers. I thought that was a little bit different, and I like that the embossed frame has a good shine all the way around. Two different pattern papers cut to size. You'll be proud of me. I actually cut those by hand. You can see I did not use my Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle dies on either of those layers of pattern paper. I did give them thin white mats for both of those. Glued those both down to my navy card base, stamped and embossed the thank you using white embossing powder, and then I mounted the geometric frame and the ephemera flowers with foam squares. Very pretty, very similar to my sets of thank you cards, but a little bit more colorful. Okay, now though I have used that flower stamp, I haven't watercolored it yet, so I figured I should watercolor it. We do have our Winsor & Newton watercolor palette with Lots of Love card. Again, I die cut a piece of our watercolor paper from the card kit with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die. I stamped the flower and then cut a mask for that flower and then stamped the leaves going all the way around it, all using my VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and colored this whole thing using the watercolor dot palette. Now, I knew I was putting this on the yellow card base. That's why I colored this flower mostly using the yellow ochre in our watercolor dot palette. Really, really nice. I'm not quite sure what kind of a flower that is, and I have no idea if I did it any real justice, but it was fun to paint this. Again, I painted this just like I painted my berry stamps. I surrounded my flower and greenery with some of the dioxazine violet from our palette card, and then I stamped this sentiment using the Wilted Violet Distress Oxide ink. I also embossed that with some clear embossing powder for a little shine there. I glued our die-cut watercolor panel directly to the soft yellow card base. I outlined the whole frame using the medium peel-offs, our lilac peel-offs included in the kit, and then I did a little 3/4 frame on the watercolor piece itself with the thinnest peel-offs from our kit. A few of the green enamel dots finish out this card with Lots of Love. Very pretty. I really like this. Purple and yellow are complementary colors, work so nicely together. With Lots of Love, another watercolor card. Now, I was determined to use that brand new candy stripe rubber background stamp before I finished my 10 cards this month. This is the first big rubber background stamp that Love From Lizi has produced. I was determined to use that. I played around with it quite a bit and stamped different colors on different colors, and then I realized that I could use that stamp to add patterns to the watercolor pattern papers from this kit. On our final orange card base, we've got Many Thanks, a super shiny fun card. Many thanks. I actually embossed that candy stripe background stamp on this orangish pattern paper using VersaFine ink and some clear embossing powder. Came out so nicely. I love the clear stripes on that pattern paper. I'm absolutely thrilled to have that stamp. Now, I die cut that panel with a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die, added it to a thin white mat, glued it down to an orange card base. I added a strip of that nice mauve ribbon along the bottom here, and then instead of a bow, I added some of those dark purple enamel dots. Now, I did die cut this sentiment a few times times. I think there's 2 layers of white and then 1 layer of that shiny berry and leaf pattern paper that we had. So this is like the darkest pattern paper that we have. That is the top of that. And then I went in and I clear embossed the top of that sentiment too. Well, I figured if I was going to clear emboss everything on this card, I should clear emboss this ephemera piece as well. So I actually went in and I fussy cut a lot of the white border away, got rid of a lot of that white border. There's still a little bit of white border on that. It matches the white frame around our pattern paper, and then I embossed that with some clear embossing powder to shine, shine, shine. Oh my goodness, this is really nice on an orange card base. I'm so shocked how pretty this card looks. Many, many thanks. So that's my 10 cards from the, so that's my 20 cards from the Love from Lizi September 2019 Super Card Kit. Happy 3rd birthday, Lizi. Thank you so much for filling up our stashes with so much great product. I think we've got a really nice variety of cards here and quite a few different styles displayed as well. We have some watercolor cards, some paper-pieced cards, stamps, fussy cuts, a nice little summery rainbow over here. But basically, all thank you cards. If there's one card I can use more than anything else, it's thank you cards. I think I found a lot of good options for using all of the supplies in our kit. I, of course, have a great many supplies left over. I did finish up that watercolor paper. I do have some of that vellum left, and of course, I have all of those stickers left. I did use 8 sheets of pattern paper, so I've got 12 sheets of pattern paper that haven't been touched yet. Those will go in my stash. Of course, I have all of the stamps and dies and stamps and dies and stamps and dies and stamps that will go in my stash. I did manage to use a little bit of everything from this kit. I used some of the sequins, I used some of the ephemera pieces, have tons of those left over, a number of the enamel dots. I even used a bunch of the ribbon. I did color from the watercolor palette. I used 10 out of the 11 ephemera frames. Of course, I used some of the peel-offs as well. I almost used the bag that held all of our embellishments this month. I had such a great time putting these cards together. I am looking forward to the holidays when I can make gifts of these great collections. Those will be very appreciated. And I did manage to use every sentiment in this set and most of those brushstroke stamps as well. This actually begins my 3rd year as a design team member at Love From Lizi. I started in September of 2017. The last couple of years have certainly been a wild ride with what I think is one of the most unique card kits out there today. I owe a great big thank you to Lizi, to my fellow design team members, and to you, my followers. You are the reason that I do this. Your generous support and encouragement over the years has kept me inspired, and I'm continually searching for unique ways to use these kits and hopefully spark your imagination on your card journey. Thank you so much for sharing your time with me. It means so much to me. Please remember to like me, list me, pin me, post me, share me with all of your friends. Don't run with scissors. And as always, happy crafting. And happy birthday, Lizi. If you would like more detailed information, better pictures, and product links, please visit my website at CardCutups.com.